This episode of SheVentures does have some explicit language. Just wanted to let you know ahead of time. Thanks. Welcome to Season 5 of SheVentures. I am your host, Doria Lavagnino. SheVentures is a podcast about women and their work and life pivots. I believe in the power of storytelling. I also believe that if you change one woman's life, you start to change a family or a community. Our mission is to elevate the diverse stories of everyday women in their worth. One promise, no mansplaining ever. Sit back, listen, and hit subscribe. We'd love to hear from you. You can find us at SheVenturesPodcast.com. How do you go from a successful 20-year career in television to pivot to podcasting, motherhood, and community building? Today's guest appeared on numerous network shows and events. NBC's Extra, HGTV, Lifetime, and VH1, to name a few. You've also likely seen her covering awards like the Oscars, the Emmys, the Golden Globes, and the MTV Music Awards, and the list goes on. As if that isn't enough, she has also worked with brands as diverse as Colgate to Cadillac. And due to her authentic voice, she has been a guest on more than 100 shows, ones that we all know well, Good Morning America, The Today Show, The View, and many more. And then something happened in 2021, and she decided to pivot, as we mentioned, to podcasting after the birth of her daughter. And her show is called Mamaste, and it is about the journey of motherhood with the goal of both entertaining and creating community. Tanika Ray, welcome to SheVentures.
Thank you so much. I love the name of your podcast. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I love the name of yours. It's, I didn't want to say Tanika Ray at the beginning because then I'd give it all away, right? But I like how it rhymes, Mamaste with Tanika Ray.
I do too. I love a little poetry, Shel Silverstein. Yes. And the whole idea of trying to bring some sort of zen to mommyhood is the goal.
Yes, which is not an easy thing to do.
No, ma'am.
We will definitely get into that. I wanted to start with your long career covering entertainment. And I wanted to ask you, when you're asked, what was one thing that you absolutely loved and absolutely hated about what you did? What comes to mind?
I mean, it's super easy. I have a passion for connecting. And I learned that at a very young age. I need to connect with people through words, through dance, through touch. I'm very passionate about it. And what I learned working at all the shows that I've been on is I really started to be grateful for, even if the connection was 15 minutes, it's valuable. And I felt that in my spirit the first time I interviewed Oprah. I'm new on a job and they're like, sure, you're going to go now interview the queen of media and you got to suck it up, do what you got to do. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I had 3 minutes with her and it was the best 3 minutes of my life. So it really doesn't matter what that connection is. And I live by that saying, relationships are literally ships that take you from one place to another. Those trips could be 30 seconds or they can be 30 years. It's all relative.
Absolutely. And you didn't tell me what you hated.
Oh, easy. I hated all the bullshit. Can I cuss on this? Okay, I'll give you
an example of the bullshit.
It really had nothing to do with me on red carpets or me in junkets. Now, people don't know what junkets are, but whenever you see actors talking about their movie, that's happening in a junket. And those happen on the weekend. So I was working nonstop from 6 till 8 every single day and then doing junkets on the weekend. And what I realized was the worst part, outside of just not having any time to breathe, is how easy it is to descend into alcoholism, foodism, all the things we need to try to function, because it's not normal to go 25/8 with no time for yourself. It's not okay. But when they pay you well, they think they own you and they don't care about your well-being.
Absolutely. I've referred to it as a velvet coffin because
there you go.
Right? You're not really growing anymore. You're not learning and you're destroying your body and your mental health, but you're getting paid well. And it's hard. It's hard. And there are perks as well, right?
Sure. You can afford to go on vacation, but you need a vacation from your vacation. So,
totally.
Well, I had a much more dramatic way of describing it. I called it the fabulous life of the modern day slave. And that's really what I felt. It would have been fine if I'm very honest and I'm very on the up and up. And it would have been fine if we all had that ideology. But in television, you got to get it. You got to get the answer. And it was a lot of competition to be exclusive on something that they already heard about from J-Lo on her Facebook. So it was kind of silly.
So I've only seen Oprah in person once in my life. I was an assistant at Good Housekeeping at the very beginning of my career.
Oh, yeah.
And she was walking through the Good Housekeeping Institute with Tom Hanks. I don't even know why. But I'm sitting there at my desk and I'm like, oh my God. And she just exuded confidence. And I was just curious, what was that 3 minutes like with her?
Well, we were at the museum for, God, what was it? It was an African-American, like it was a really dark topic, like a slave museum or something really depressing. And she was there in Kentucky opening it. And she grabbed my hand, never seen me before in her life. She grabbed my hand to like make sure my heart was beating really fast. And just that holding of my hand made me feel like everything was going to be okay. And this is when I knew I was in the right industry, because we can be scared all we want, but something kicks in when you're in the mid-flight in the air waiting for that parachute to pull out. You get brave. And you go on autopilot and you just do what you know you can do. And I was able to have that experience with Oprah holding my hand like the second week on that job. So it was everything for me. It made me know I was in the right place. It validated the very little experience that I had, but it was almost like she was holding my hand like, you got this. It was special.
Oh, I can only imagine. I wish my second week on the job was like that. So I guess that would be, my next question was going to be talk about a particularly memorable experience you had. But I was thinking maybe we could talk about red carpet. Like, what is the most memorable experience you had on the red carpet?
It's not memorable for a good reason, but we were at the Grammys, and I can't remember what year this is, but we get word while we're on the red carpet, dressed, ready for people to walk down, that there was an altercation with Chris Brown and Rihanna. And we had never experienced anything like that while we're all waiting for Chris Brown and Rihanna. That was awkward and strange. And unfortunately, in these circumstances, there's no grace because television shows need to make their audience want to hear what they have to say. So I was like, don't ask it. Of course, the producer's like, ask everyone. As a matter of fact, when you go to that event with Halle Berry, could you ask her too? Because there are rumors she may have suffered something similar. We don't have any proof, but, violate her space too. It was those kinds of things. Am I still talking about the things I hated? It was those things that lacked humanity for me that isn't in alignment with who I am.
I completely understand that. And I want to get to your podcast, but I just wanted to ask, one of the big issues has been lack of representation of people of color in Hollywood. Yeah. Do you feel that there has been progress made or a long way to go or both?
I think there's a lot of optical progress made. Is that a word? Optics? The optics were changed.
I totally know what you mean.
Yeah. As I always say, this is territory that none of us have tread down before. This is new for all of us. It's new for us who identify as African American Black, that there's so much space for those conversations now, whereas before they were just shut down, you were othered, and nobody wanted to talk about it. I think Hollywood is in a very unique space because it's the only industry where you can request, we want a Black girl, kind of hood, maybe not speak very good English, very uneducated. They can actually request that. And then what actors have to do is oblige the casting call. I mean, that's pretty inappropriate when you think about it. But that's kind of baked in the sauce of Hollywood, as well as we're a culture where we hug our coworkers. It's weird. But so there's a lot of boundaries that are blurry in Hollywood. As far as representation, my biggest issue at the show I was at was we did cover people of different backgrounds. They were the same 6 people all the time, as if only 6 African Americans are worthy. Oprah, Will, Denzel, Halle, Beyonce. I can't even, and Jamie Foxx. And that was it. I remember having to fight to get Taraji P. Henson on. This is before she kind of blew up, it was after the Oscars. After she had done Benjamin Buttons with Brad Pitt, they still weren't interested. She wasn't a big enough, she hadn't crossed over in their minds. But if we had been there, and my whole argument was, we have to understand who's coming next, become friends with them, so that when they do blow up, they know that we were there before the hoopla. They couldn't embrace that.
They couldn't embrace it. Well,
no.
Their loss. Being a woman, how was that?
It's a very sexist community, obviously. And I'm not going to say it's only from men. Women are guilty too, because that's the culture. Whenever you go to work and there's hugs and kisses with cameramen, it's blurry and confusing. And there are inappropriate jokes from the boss. Who's a female. I had a female boss, but she ran that show like she had a schlong that hit her kneecap. And she acted accordingly. You know, she was more of a man than anybody else. And I mean, man who was just unaccepting of women's stuff. Like, I remember her being really pissed that the host at the time, this is before I was host, I was co-host, she was pregnant. And my boss, she was like playing around, took a knife and put it towards her belly because she didn't want her pregnant. And she was very open about it. She did not want her pregnant because that was going to mean she had to take time off. And it was disgusting. That woman had no kids, so she had no empathy. But there were so many inappropriate things.
Actually took a knife in front of people as if she was going to cut the baby out.
Correct. And everyone's just like, that's just the culture we lived in. Everybody in Hollywood knew the kind of aggression that was happening at the show I was on, but nobody did anything. So it's just really interesting how Hollywood, places like corporations work, whereas they know what's happening. We're watching it play out right now. We just watched that they wanted to suspend the 2 Justins. Well, the guy that actually wanted to suspend them initially was caught molesting boys or something. And everybody knew, but they wanted to put that under the carpet and go and they need to be suspended. So it happens all the time. And only when something hits the breaking point do people, now we got to clean things up. So it's messy. It's a messy world in Hollywood. You see a lot of glam. You see a lot of pretty people, but there's a lot of crap underneath the surface.
It sounds that way. You've made me so grateful.
I know. I hope I didn't bust anybody's bubbles. They make beautiful products, but there's a lot of swarmy shit underneath the surface, if I can say that.
If you're an authentic person, like, it just doesn't work.
It was hard for me.
You got to swallow it. But then, I also understand being in one's 20s and like also being kind of seduced by the whole thing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I wanted to be an actress. So that was initially my goal. And then I acted for a little bit and I was like, nah, that's not it. What can I do? And I remember going on like a 6-month sabbatical where I didn't speak to anybody. I spent I don't have a problem spending time alone. It's kind of my favorite time with myself. And I really had a lot of conversations with God, like, what is my purpose? And I think I've learned that all of us should ask God or universe or whatever you pray to often, am I still on the right path? Because I think we get caught up with inertia and we're like, it's worked before, it should work now. But every day's different. Every day's an opportunity to start new. So if you don't check in, how will you know if you're still on the right path? And I think people think there's only one purpose that they're born with, and it's just not true. There might be some detour that then takes you to your destiny, and you have to be willing to embrace it all.
I think that's so true, particularly when you look at someone's life in reverse and the things that happened to them to get them to where they were. I mean, obviously there were choices along the way. I would love to go into your pivot now. So you had a career and you obviously were very successful at it. It had its few pros and a lot of cons. You became pregnant. I hope to have the sequence of events right. Tell me if I'm off.
Okay, well, I'll break it down because I know it's confusing because I was at Extra from 2004 to 2009. Then I left for 8 years. I made a very bold decision. I'll never forget that same woman when I said, I'm sick of this environment. I'm sick of the culture here. It's not my jam. Like, I'm willing to throw that money out to find my peace. And she goes, "What? You want to host the show with Mario?" And I just remember going, that wasn't even enough of a pull. Yes, I deserve to be host with Mario since he was my co-host initially, and I made him look good. So they started to love him, but I just needed to free myself. Freedom and peace of mind was more important. Then I left for 8 years. I worked with HGTV and a bunch of brands. I then had a baby in 2014 and was happy. Here's the thing about social media that's so interesting. You put your authentic self out there. I mean, some people put their fake self, but I'm very much in line with my authentic self. And my old job was stalking me and saw all my joy and then wanted a piece of it again and brought me back 2017 to 2019. So that means my child was 3 when I started back. And I was now host with Mario Lopez. See how everything came right back to full circle.
Full circle. And it's often true, I think, in almost any career that you have to leave to be appreciated.
Yes.
Isn't that the truth?
It's so, please, people, listen to that. They will not respect you if you stay and they keep sort of saying, well, you're going to have to take a pay cut. And then, you're going to have to work longer hours and we're going to take this vacation away. If you stay, you're done. They will now consider you putty and they can do whatever they want with you. And what I knew to be true was happiness, peace, frustration. I choose peace every single time. And when they came back to me in 2017, I had to really think about it. Like, what are you going to do for me? Like, is it worth it? And the culture is going to have to change. You're not going to call me at 5:45, say, rush across town to a premiere. I have a child. You need to organize my schedule. And I'm not going to be losing my sleep and feeling crazy because of disorganization. So I felt like it was the moment in time that God was like, now you can do it the right way on your terms.
Boss move. And did they listen?
Yeah, they had to. That was what I negotiated for that second go round. And kudos to them. They stuck to it. Where they called me at 5:45, I'm like, sorry, I can't. And they had to go another route. It's probably the reason why, I mean, they weren't very happy about it, but it is what it is.
It is what it is. What then inspired your pivot to leave and go into your own media company and podcasting?
Overall, I feel like I've done it. I feel like I've done every red carpet. Red carpets were no longer enjoyable. They were burdens. Because of the culture of standing on the red carpet, you never have enough space. They like the what do you call it? Sardines in a can because it makes more hysteria. It was just exhausting. And I was like, God, how long am I going to do this? And am I going to meet anybody new and interesting? And on top of that, another thing that kind of became less appealing was it was less real stars and more reality stars. And I got into the business to connect with the Brad Pitt, Angelina, beyond people who have like actual talent. That's what I want to connect with, people who are excellent.
I swear to you, I watch the red carpet sometimes. I don't know who half the people even are. I'm like, who are you?
Exactly. And I felt the same way. Like, what are we doing? We are dumbing down this brand. We don't need to speak to the motorcycle guy who's spitting his mom's face on that reality show. Who cares?
Wow. So it transitioned, you transitioned, motherhood transitioned you. How has motherhood impacted your life and your career?
Whew. Motherhood it's a beast, right? And I think the reason why I had to create Mamaste with Tanika Ray is because I wanted that narrative to be out there. Somewhere, some free person had to say, oh my God, it sucks sometimes. And it's okay that it's a huge beast, that I think, now that I've had time to think about it, I'm like, why are women tasked with this huge unpaid job by themselves? Unpaid. Why is that? Oh, that's right. The patriarchy. Oh, they struck again. What a brilliant thing they created here, that women are suited so they get that job and we'll go out and make the money and have freedom. Like it's insane when you really think about it. And I refuse to believe that God put babies on earth for only mothers to take care of. I'm a single woman with a child. So I have my own stuff, right? Her father lives 7 minutes away. He picks her up every morning and takes her to school. That's our arrangement. I would be pissed if I was married to the love of my life and I still had all the jobs and parenting. That's cause for divorce right there.
Right. And then what I tend to see happening is when a man then does something, it's like, oh, thank you so much. It's like, come on, man.
Yes, like when they babysit their own children. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Oh, I'll watch the kids while no, you are going to watch the kids because that's your job too. Yes.
Is your co-parenting relationship, is it a good one?
It's gone through a lot of different chapters. It's hard. Nothing's worse than raising a child with somebody you don't want to have a relationship with. But for some of us, that's the reality. This co-parenting space is kind of new, and so it's uncharted territory. We're all trying to figure out how to best co-parent. For me, it's best in our very untraditional family for me to be the boss, for me to delegate, for me to give people roles. That's how we work best because I see full picture, and it seems like he only sees his life and what he needs to do because that's the patriarchy again. Men just don't have to worry about anybody but themselves. And I step in and I'm like, I realize my piece came with delegating and giving him a full schedule. So I need you to do this and you need to buy her this and you need to go and take her here. And he follows directions well. So we're much better.
That's good. I'm glad that he follows. No, seriously, I'm glad he follows directions well.
Yes, he does. He does. That's one of his greatest gifts is he can follow an itinerary and follow. He may not do it well. He may feed her donuts and pancakes and ice cream all day, but at least she's fed.
And I would imagine at least he's involved.
Well, what does that mean, involved?
In parenting. He seems to have an interest in his child or
yes.
No?
Yes, he
okay.
loves his child. Oh, yeah, he loves her. I see what you're saying. He's involved that way. Yeah, he loves her. He wants to be. He may not know how to connect with her all the way. I think it's hard for men. But he overcompensates by buying her the world. So right now, that's their relationship, which I think is troubling. I grew up that way. And so I'm trying to course correct for my child. But it's super interesting to me. I'm a very introspective person. And I'm realizing that children are given to us for us to continue working through our stuff. We're not done. When you have a kid, you're not perfect. You still got to work because those babies are going to bring it up almost every day. Almost every day.
Yes.
You're like, oh, there's that thing that I thought went away. Nope. Your child brought it right back up. Yeah.
Oh, that is so on point because one of the things that my 18-year-old has taught me about is generational trauma. And I didn't even really know what, I was like, and I had a rough time growing up. And so she's like, I feel like my sister and I are where the generational trauma hopefully ends. And I wondered how you feel about that in your own life, because you talk about your mom a little bit.
You just gave me goosebumps. I'm so excited for you because we talk about generational trauma a lot on Mamaste because that's where I'm coming from. I never wanted to be a mom because I didn't have a great mother-daughter relationship growing up. And so when it happened, I literally was like, God, this is what you want me to do?
Right.
Okay. I mean, I'm very connected to my universe and I'm like, all right, here we go. And, I knew stuff would come up, but it is every single day. For instance, generational trauma is silent. It's covert. It's sneaky. We don't even know where it is. And we may not even know it exists until some altercation with your child, right? So my daughter, I realized her whole life I would try to go lotion her body. Is what Black people, we love to lotion. We love moisture, right? And my daughter's always like trying to sneak away, like she's scared of me. We had a deep conversation the other day. Why are you always pulling away like you're scared of me? And she said, I don't know, mommy, maybe it's your stuff. And I was like, oh, shit. Well, no, it's something there. When I heard that your grandmother is born with the essence of you. So when your grandmother is 5, you're in her. In some way, you're in your grandmother, right? And so what she goes through is in coursing through her veins. And then that's passed down to her daughter. And what she goes through is coursing through her veins. So my daughter pulling away is some deep generational trauma we haven't identified yet.
Yes. But how deep that like she has the language to even express that. That's incredible.
Let me tell you how unbelievable my daughter is. So when I get pregnant, and please understand, I'm a grown woman. I had a baby at 42. I had a baby at 42, not trying, with no complications. They would say to me, they would put out that G word, which is so disrespectful. It's a geriatric,
A geriatric pregnancy? I know. They said that to me. Yeah, it's like, fuck you.
Fuck you. How dare you? It's so disrespectful, right?
It is.
But every time they tried to scare me, and then we got like Black maternal health stuff in this country too, but every time they tried to scare me, I was like, no, she's fine. Stop. Thank God I know myself so well. And I had this child who is spiritual. I have this child who is conscious. I have this child who says things like, Mommy, I chose you for this lifetime. And I'm like, she's like, there were all these moms and you were kind of at the end of the line. And I was like, and she goes, and I looked at you and I was like, I want her. And just the things that come out of her mouth. And I'm like, I believe it.
I do too.
I believe it.
Wow. I just have to take a moment with that. Like, incredible. Like, the visual even is incredible.
Yeah. And I think she's allowed to be, just real quick, I think she's allowed to be that way. And this is what I talk to moms about a lot. She's allowed to be this way because when she tells me those stories, I don't tell her she's ridiculous. I don't tell her those are stories and that sounds crazy. I say, that is amazing. I want to keep her connection to universe as strong as it can for as long as it can be.
Absolutely. Because we're told so often as children, as women, and I'm not equating the two, just two things that I identify as, no, oh my God, that is the weirdest thing to say.
No, it's not. I get it.
But do you know what I mean? It's like, I completely lost my train of thought. This is menopause, by the way. This year.
But I'm right there with you though, because I think for me, I'm always connected to my inner child. I'm always connected to the little girl that I had to save growing up. So that's always there. I totally was right there with you. Don't doubt yourself.
See, that's what's so hard, I think, about generational trauma is that little girl learned behaviors that helped her survive.
Oh, God, yes.
And so how do you unlearn them when they're no longer appropriate, when they're just like instinctual?
So hard. It's so hard. You're going to make me cry. You just like hit it on the head. We're always saving. For me, I know where she lives. She's in my belly. It's why I can't get a 6-pack. She just lives in that muffin top. She's just so comfy there, which is pretty deep. My daughter was 40 weeks before they had to induce, 41 weeks, because she was comfortable. She was comfy in the space that my inner child lives, and she didn't want to come out. I find it all like it's not a coincidence. There's some truth there. And I had to just lean into it. I had to lean into it and understand that even though it's scary stuff, like your daughters, I grew up with I am so grateful that I grew up with Oprah. I grew up with Marianne Williamson and Deepak Chopra. Those are the people, when I was about 20, I started to really lean into spirituality. And I was like, now it all makes sense. 7 Spiritual Laws of Success changed my life when I was desperately looking for something that just made sense. Not a story, not anything, but just common human behavior. And that changed my life. And I will be the one that changes the generational trauma because I have the bandwidth. Sometimes that's inconvenient for my family. Sometimes I have to make hard decisions like, I'm going to spend Mother's Day with my daughter. I'm not coming to the family event. Sometimes that's hard for people, but those are my boundaries for me.
I'm going to think about that this Mother's Day because I find myself in that situation often. And it's like, I'll leave that there.
No, I want to hear it. I want to hear it.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, when you've had a complicated relationship with your own mother, for me, I think I've gotten to the place of forgiveness because I realized at some point that staying angry only hurt me. But at the same time, I want to spend time with my daughters on days like Mother's Day. And I don't necessarily have the bandwidth to, so it's a little complicated. And
I get it. Because if you're with your mother, then it becomes about her.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
It's a tough one. So, TBD as to what happens.
Well, I've already announced it to my parents that I will not be there. I'm getting in front of it. Like, I don't want to have I don't want you to ruin my day. It's my day too. I just won't be there.
Oh my gosh, that's so powerful. Like, I just need to say that instead of making such a big thing about it in my own mind.
Yes. Free yourself. By the way, we're going to be someplace else. And then send her a card.
Thank you. This has been very helpful. You obviously have a lot of depth of perception. And I wanted you to think about women who listen to this podcast who may be single mothers, may be working mothers, may not be mothers at all. What tips would you give other women, though, who are considering trying to balance their career and their family life?
Well, that's never going to happen.
Yeah, right.
So I think it's like, we're shooting ourselves in the foot thinking that it's possible. I love this show called Working Moms. If you haven't seen Working Moms.
I have not.
Oh.
Is it good?
It's in its 7th season, sis. Go binge on Netflix.
All right.
And she's the daughter of Ivan Reitman. She is the writer. She is the main star. It is all about the insanity of trying to balance. It's never going to happen. What we need to understand is today I'm going to be present here. Tomorrow I may be present there. But today, let me focus on what I need to do today and understand where everybody goes and give your kids. Now, we live in a very interesting time where kids don't ever experience boredom.
I know. God forbid. God forbid. Yeah.
Boredom is where magic happens. I just refuse. I got to the point where I'm guilty. I've overscheduled my child to a T. She's got an after-school activity every single day. She spends all day Saturday at a theater company. On Sunday, it's constant. So now I'm deciding, I've done too much. I'm pulling back. You get 2 activities, and you get those other days, you get to be bored. You get to be bored and find the joy of your own room. See, as a single woman with a child, mind you, we went through the pandemic, just the 2 of us. So my daughter is super hyper, obsessed with her mommy. A little codependent, but that's just the nature of being locked down in a global pandemic with just the 2 of you. But I'm just helping her understand the power of silence, the power of her own thoughts. That's where you can talk to God, having to really make time alone doing nothing attractive has been the key to my balance, because if she can go to her room, I can find some breathing space in mommying. Before now, I was like, I'm on the clock. The second I pick her up, I'm on her timetable. I've got to be her assistant, her cook, her chef, her therapist, and there's no me anymore. And that got really scary. Where am I?
It's like you're the Energizer Bunny. I have a few thoughts. Like, firstly, in my experience, I tried to do it all. And what I found was that I could not do everything well. And it was at the sacrifice of my own health. And
Of course.
that was when I had to start making decisions about what was important to me, similar to you, and what am I willing to do and what am I not willing to do anymore. I think that that's part of the journey that all women who become mothers go through.
I'm going to take it a notch up. I think that's the journey of women who become mothers who had very complicated relationship with their mom. Because all I want to do, and I'm having these conversations with my dad now, all I want to do is right the wrongs of what I experienced through my mother. All I want my daughter to do is have no question she's loved. I want her to have no question of her abilities and how beautiful and special she is. All the stuff that I lacked that I want to like vomit all over my child. So I've got to check myself too. All the things that I get her involved in, that may be more for me than her.
Totally. It's really hard to tell the difference sometimes. And you are so right on that. And now that mine are older, 16 and 18, they will tell me when I have crossed the line. But and boy, do they tell you. But
they have no chill at all. Yes.
But I really admire that you notice that about yourself, because I do that too. I want my daughters to never have to experience neglect. Never. And what I've also realized is that they're their own people and I can't protect them from everything, and that they may experience those things regardless of everything that I try to do. And I have to be okay with that.
1,000%. And that is, I think, because I spent so much time alone in a house where I was the outcast. You spend a lot of time observing and trying to figure things out, putting puzzle pieces together, which is why I never wanted to be a mother. I hadn't had it figured out yet. But now it's almost sad because now I really see where my mom was deficient. I really see it. Where she just gave up or she didn't give a fuck, right? Like I see it. But that's okay because that's her journey. And I've gotten a lot of peace. I was on Red Table Talk last year being more honest about my relationship with my mom than ever. Like crying on that show was a catharsis that absolutely freed me. I had been so ego bound not to let people see that I was hurt or that I had weaknesses. And I just, in that moment, talking to Jada, I just let it go. I think facing the fear of looking like a wimp freed me. There's so many of us that have to navigate Mother's Day on tiptoes. There's so many of us that have so much pain. You go to the card store, your local CVS or Rite Aid, and it's a gut punch.
Well, there's no card that says what
There's
I want to say.
No. All those sappy fucking cards, no. For me, I typically buy a blank card and thanks for having me. Happy Mother's Day.
It's honest.
It's honest. That's who I am. I'm transparent to a fault.
I admire that greatly because it's not an easy way to live. Well, what has becoming a mother changed your definition? How has it changed your definition of success, either personally or professionally?
Completely. I mean, before this, I was the career girl that wanted to do as many things as possible. I set out to prove, not to harp on the mom thing, but that's been my goal my whole life, is to prove her wrong, to prove her absolutely wrong. I wasn't this enough. I wasn't that enough. My hair's to this. And I understand now that's her own shit. And success for me was just the dollars, and it was the prestige, and it was how many shows can I be on? And I did it back to back to back. At one point I was on 5 shows concurrently. But once I healed myself, now I'm like, well, what's my push now to make money? I'm comfortable. What do I really want to do? And success to me is being able to wake up without feeling like I'm depressed, to be honest. It's waking up and knowing that even if I'm having a gloomy moment, I know how to help myself. I know I need to go to the gym. I know I need to eat a smoothie. I know I need to drink water. I know I need to do affirmations. I know I need to meditate. I have tools now. So my success is utilizing tools, waking up every day knowing my daughter is loved, I love my daughter, and that I'm moving forward in the things, my wildest dreams. So I want to connect. Next, I have like Viola. I got to get Viola on the podcast. Just moving forward with whatever is in my head. That's success. Being brave enough to do those silly things that are just living dormant in your mind and in your heart. That's success.
Love it. Where do you see your podcast going?
I don't know. It's hard for me. I'm not there yet. Like, I'm so good at making other people's projects amazing. I'm at the point where I'm like, this is a scary place. I would have never done this had we not gone through the pandemic. The pandemic happened, we're shut down. Then this thing called Clubhouse happened. I was in love. I was there all day.
Really?
So, all day, all night, starting November 2020 through June 2021. I would hold space for conversations for 12 hours. 12 with hundreds of people, especially at the time it was George Floyd. I would host rooms on institutionalized racism for 12 hours with everybody coming in there saying their piece, trying to understand. It was a beautiful model for the potential of this world. And then they screwed it up by offering people money for interesting. It was, once you put money in it, it just fucks everything up. But it connected the world. And I grew stronger and like, oh, I have something to say. And then that grew into a podcast. And now I'm in my first season, like, all right, I've done the famous people. I've said the things I want. Now let's get into the dirty. Now let's bring on therapists and talk about the stuff we're too scared to talk about.
You're so right. And as women, even I consider myself to be an independent, well-educated woman, I still am battling internalized shame, guilt,
Yes.
all of it. And oh my goodness. And that is something that meditation helps with, exercise helps with, but it is a daily journey, I have to say.
That's what I say all the time. Thank you for saying that. If you don't work that muscle, it will atrophy. My baby's father used to always say, I'm like, you're eating ice cream. Well, I worked out last week. And it's like, that's not how it works. Like every day, if you want to be healthy, every day requires effort or it goes to shit. Like people really need to understand you meditated in February does not have lasting effects in May. You have to dive in as often as you can. Now, I'm one of those people who's not great at meditation. I get actually very anxious. And for me, meditation happens when I'm moving. I love moving meditation, hiking, dancing, working out. Such a clear channel to universe when my body is distracted. I don't know what that is, but that's sort of when I'm cleaning the house. I have full conversations with source universe like they're standing there. Like,
I think you should record one of those.
I think oh, that's interesting. Okay, that's a good one.
I would love that.
I've done a lot of very interesting experimental things on my pod. Like, when you're inspired and you could be driving somewhere and I just turn on my voice notes, and I've even aired voice notes and then commented on what I was thinking at the time, because you just never know when a podcast idea is going to pop up. And we're grown-ass women. You don't want to forget. So you got to get it on that tape, girl.
Note to self, I need to use my voice memo more often.
Yes. So good.
Oh, you have been incredible. I want to thank you for coming on, being so authentic. And please let SheVentures listeners know where they can find out more about you and your podcast.
Yes. Well, I am at Tanika Ray on all platforms. And you can always find out. I'm in this phase of, I threw a live event in January, our first Mamaste live event. It was incredible, where I can pour into moms and say, no, you receive today. There's delicious food. We have a sound bath and a letting go ceremony on the beach in front of the ocean. The sun was shining. It was everything. If I can bring more women into a space where we can just fill our own cup, that is the most important passion of mine right now. And you can find me. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you sign up to my newsletters, because we're going to do more Zoom events where we can have community to vent, scream, love, laugh, all the things that women used to do out of the eyesight of men back in the primitive days that fortified us. We need to go back to that. We need each other.
Yes, we do. I love that. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Doria. I really appreciate you.
You've been listening to SheVentures. Like what you heard? You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to subscribe and sign up for our newsletter so you never miss a show.